Good afternoon. Can you listen to me?
Yes, we can.
Okay, perfect.
Okay.
Perfect. We're going to wait just one more minute in order to start our webinar and letting people getting into our room. Hey, good afternoon. My name is Claudia Uribe from Asocopi. We are delighted to welcome you to this space that our Asociación Asocopi has created. Today, we continue with our series of webinars held on the last Thursday of every month with different, relevant, and updated topics that certainly contribute to the professional development of English teachers in Colombia. Before our webinar, we would like to invite you to our annual conference from the Global South, Our Roots, Perspectives, and Transformations. The conference will be at Universidad de Caldas in the beautiful city of Manizales from October the 12th to the 14th. Before we start, I am going to share a short video with you. Give me a couple of seconds. Remember to book your plane tickets and your hotel, so we see you in Manizales. Today's webinar, Teachers' Voices, Experiencing the Colonial Criteria for ELT Material with Dr. Astrid Núñez Pardo. We are pleased to have an expert in the field who was awarded last year by Asocopi with the Claire da Silva as a pillar from our community and acknowledged as well as a pioneer woman in Colombia. Dr. Astrid Núñez Pardo also coordinates the Materials Development and Didactics Special Interest Group in our association. Dr. Astrid Núñez Pardo holds a PhD in Education Sciences from Universidad Pedagógica y Tecnológica de Colombia and a Master's in Education from Universidad Externado de Colombia. She also has a diploma in linguistic studies from the University of Essex, United Kingdom, and child rights management from Lund University in Sweden. Astrid, I am really happy, and Asocopi is really happy because you're joining us today with this amazing webinar. The floor is yours, and we are ready to learn.
Thank you, Maria. Thank you, Maria. Thank you so much for that lovely presentation. And hi, everyone. Thanks for joining. I'm really pleased to be here and to have the privilege of sharing with you the results of one of my latest research studies, which I will show you, and especially to let you know the preliminary findings of this narrative study. So just let me share my screen, and then you let me know if you're seeing that or not. Are you seeing it now or not?
Yes, we are.
Sorry, I'm not.
Don't
I know where
worry.
it should be. The first one. Okay. Now,
Perfect.
is it okay?
Yes, if
Right.
you
I'm so happy
perfect.
that I can see the participants. I was so worried because sometimes the speakers are left alone only with the presentation, so we cannot see anybody else. I'm so happy I can see here the participants. If you could please, Claudia Maria, help me identify whenever they want to participate, I will
Yes,
be
I will.
grateful. Okay?
Yes, I'm
Well,
going to be
then,
attentive.
all right, well, thank you so much. So as Claudia Maria mentioned, the title of this study that I will share today is Teacher Voices, Experiencing the Economic Criteria for ELT Materials Otherwise. I'm seeing that some of my former students and today they hold masters in ELT are here. So welcome and thank you so much for attending. So then the first thing is to thank you again for being interested in our research line on critical decolonial stances in EFL materials otherwise. So this is the time in Colombia for coffee time, for tea time, whatever you think. So it would be nice to share that coffee in this way. So soon we can do it in Manizales, okay, face to face. So then our agenda will take us through these different sections. First, I will address my locus of enunciation, all the Claudia Maria mentioned, several issues of mine, teaching experience and studies. Of course, there will be exploration questions for you to please participate. Don't be afraid to activate your microphone and answer the questions or participate. I will show the research objectives and the question and the research objective, a little bit of the theoretical underpinnings for the study, the research part, the data analysis, preliminary findings, and some conclusions that I have been able to identify so far. I would like to begin by referring to my locus of enunciation or place of enunciation from where I speak. As you can see, according to Rosvogel and Suhigarto, it allows us to tell about our life experience, our story. So then the first thing I want to say is that I am a female in her very late 50s. Okay? So then I was born in Gigante Huila, as you can see, Huila department. Gigante is a tiny little town where I was born and I grew, and I finished there my secondary school. I'm married and without children. For many, it is a surprise, but it is like that, without children. I've been blessed with my two nieces that I love deeply, and I have recently become a great auntie. I'm so pleased for that. I also have a very assorted background because I am a private university graduate from the Universidad de Colombia, where I studied hotel and business and tourism management first. Then I'm also a private and public university postgraduate because I studied at University of Essex in England, also at Lund University in Sweden, and finally at UPTC, where I could happily finish my doctoral studies. Then I will refer concerning my working experience, not yet, concerning my working experience, I worked as an English teacher for undergraduate students at several private universities for more than a decade. Then, for 16 years, I worked as a teacher educator in postgraduate education programs for both private and public universities, mainly teaching material development, research, academic writing, language teaching methodologies, and critical pedagogies as well. Regarding the recognition, as Claudia Maria mentioned, last year I had the honor and the pleasure of being the recipient of the Claire de Silva Award, and it is granted by our dear association, Asociación Colombiana de Profesores de Inglés, ASOCOPI, and I'm really grateful for that distinction. I was also recognized as as a mujer pionera in Colombia for the understanding of EFL material from a critical decolonial perspective, which is a very particular perspective. And I invite you to please question whatever thing you consider you should ask, do it now, because sometimes people can, let's say, miss and mislead the interpretation or the understanding I have of these EFL materials otherwise, please. Finally, my research interests basically include the development of contextualized and decolonized different materials, the critical analysis of these generic or standardized materials from a critical decolonial stance. I have also worked on developing the argumented competence of students and the teacher beliefs that can be transformed and recreated through the design of decolonized and contextualized EFL materials. The first part, excuse me, I forgot to mention that I can then, referring to the locus of pronunciation, I can then position myself as someone who has problematized and become aware of ELT ideology in Colombia and everywhere. Someone who has resisted and raised her voice against it. And you will see throughout this presentation the way in which I have done. So exploring, the first part is an exploration section. And in this exploration section, I'm inviting the participants to please if you want to activate your microphone and your camera as well. So to contribute with some ideas regarding the following aspects. The first one is that I always ask about what is that perception that we have of standardized generic global EFL? What do we think of those materials? Anyone, please. Can you see anyone, Claudia?
I don't know. We are waiting for you. We have 42 more people here, so yes, I think
I haven't seen anyone raising.
Raise your hands or just open your mics, please.
And then please you tell us whatever idea or perception or belief you hold to regarding generic, standardized, decontextualized.
Okay, Andrea Quiñones.
Okay, Andrea. Oh, Andrea, lovely to see you, or to listen to you. Go ahead.
Good afternoon, Professor. Good afternoon, Claudia.
Good afternoon,
everyone. Hope you're well. Well, I think that the standardized EFL textbooks make me think of one size fits all, which clearly is not something we look forward to when working with people, because we are all different from so many different aspects. But yeah.
Thank you, dear Andrea. Yes, one size fits all, and we recall here, all right, mentioned that that is what happens with the use of those materials, but it's hard for teachers to really make sense of that for several reasons. Any other person, thank you, Andrea, who would like to tell us his or her perception or understanding of EFL textbooks? Don't be afraid, please.
Come on. I'm going to say something about that. It's like just one side of the story, your version of what I have to learn.
Okay.
That's what I think.
Thank you. It's one side of the story, yes, because the textbooks reveal or show or unveil the vision of the author, and sometimes the author is somehow ordered to do, to obey, or to follow instructions given that by the editorial houses or publishing houses or conglomerates. Okay. If we don't have any other, then we move to the second question. Please feel free to do it. The second question is, what are the reasons to use generic EFL textbooks? Why do we use those decontextualized, standardized, and colonized EFL textbooks in our pedagogical settings? Any idea, please? Thank you. Let's check it. We have anyone who's raising?
If you don't want to use your microphone, just write a message and we read it aloud.
As well, yes, that could be another possibility. Please. I'm not seeing anyone so far regarding reasons to use EFL textbooks. Why do we use those in our pedagogical context? Those textbooks or those workbooks, whatever materials that the coordinators, the bosses choose for the programs in which we work.
Okay.
We're still waiting.
CM Gomez, I would say institutions use textbooks because they don't want to spend time and resources. Gabriel Bastida says, I try not to. Andrea Quiñones says, planning seems easier it is suggested there.
Okay. All right, thank you for your answers. All of them pertinent, it is true. Planning is there when you take the teacher's guide. Everything is in there. Planning, resources, and also the answers as well. Some people say, well, some will say try not to use them. Yes, perhaps that could be one position. Another position could be to use them and to adjust it while using them or to adapt them, which I prefer developing, but you can also adapt. And also because, yes, somebody said because institutions, theoretical educational institutions don't want to spend time and resources. Yes, it is a time-consuming activity.
And it's
And of course, it costs.
there are two
Yeah.
other answers.
All
Also,
right.
it sort of gives some fancy status to the institutions.
Okay.
That was Andrea Quiñones, and Joanna Rincon Morales says, because they provided a structured curriculum that cover all language skills.
All right, right, that's true. Could be because, yes, fancy status, because some people feel like, I would say, proud of using those textbooks that are published by foreign publishing houses, or because they favor the variety of English, like British perhaps, or American English, or Australian English, depending on the case. And it is true, they structure, okay, the curriculum, the EFL curriculum, I would say the contextualized curriculum. Here we have the suggested curriculum in Colombia. And when you ask English teachers if that is really a suggested curriculum, the answers they provide is that it is not suggested but rather imposed because of the principles of the school, or because some coordinators say you have to. It is not that you can see what is useful and then you combine with the school curriculum, but it has been just taken in an critical way, and that is the problem.
And there is a
yes, thank you.
There is another one,
Yes.
Astrid. It says Jose Luis Restrepo. In case it is not mandatory, maybe it's a good way to approach a class with 45 or even more students, where you cannot focus on the strength and weaknesses of all of them.
Okay, and there I totally agree with you. It's too complex to teach a 40 students class, or 45 or 50. I had the opportunity to visit Inner Mongolia in China, in Beijing as well, and we visited some schools, and I was surprised. They had there 60 students in class. But of course, it is a different culture. Students go there to pay attention. Students are there sitting waiting for the teacher to see what they're going to teach. That is a different cultural context. But in Colombia, with this violence, with this lack of social-emotional skills, social skills is very complex to handle 48 or 38 students in a language class or in a math class. Perhaps other subjects, but these two are very demanding, I would say. So then it is true. You have, it is not mandatory, but it could facilitate, okay, delivering an English class. But I think I disagree a bit when we say that we cannot address the particularities, but they can be, and you will see how we can address those particularities, even without developing, which is my proposal, is developing or creating, okay, the materials by teachers and students, both, of course. But you can also do it in the class. So it is more demanding, but you can do it. So then, and the last one, which ways, okay, do we have to resist the global EFL textbooks? How can we resist global EFL textbooks? And if you have done it.
Hello, everybody.
Hello, Chavita querida.
Hi, teacher.
Hello, dear.
Hi. Nice to hear you and to see you again.
Thank you, dear.
Well, I think that EFL teachers know that textbooks or global textbooks are not contextualized, and they don't answer our teachers' needs, not all the time. In my case, I work in a rural school, and those global textbooks are so general, and they don't develop activities that are focused on our students' interest. So I think that this is one of the reasons, because contextualize activities and develop materials according with our students' needs are better, and we can develop our creativity as teachers if
Well,
we
thank you for
develop
that.
a specific material for our students and develop specific activities which are more interesting for them.
Thank you, Shavita. Okay, I totally agree with you when you say that, yes, the learning, the content, not only the activity, but the content of the material, of those generic materials, and also the learning activity they propose are decontextualized. You say they are not of students' interest and they are so far away from students' life experiences, from student realities that they are not engaged. So they are not motivated to read and to participate. So then that is something that we can do, adapting the activities or creating, as Sarita was mentioning, specific or contextualized materials regarding their own realities of their own concerns, the hard realities they live in the context. Do we have any other participant who would like to?
There is a message here.
Yes, please, thank you.
I think it's like lack of cultural relevance, linguistic variation, stereotyping and bias, lack of local content and cost. And yes, Joanna, it was a pleasure. And Curly Pavon, glad to be learning again from a great Professor Astrid. Okay, they are writing
Okay,
nice things
thank
about
you.
you. Thanks for
Thank
sharing
you.
your knowledge with us.
Thank you. Thank you, Kelly. Thank you, everyone. So I'm just addressing the last comment, which is cultural bias materials, okay? Cultural, lack of cultural relevance, of course, and then absence of local content. That is true. It doesn't mean that we are going against anything that is foreign. No, we are going to center on our own local, let's say, realities, local experience, students and teacher experiences. But of course, we can compare with those the same realities as they happen, but not always in the United States, not always in the United Kingdom, not always in Canada, and not always in Australia. We have the rest of culture around the world, and we can compare to what happens in Chile, to what happens in Greece, to what happens in China, in any other country where the experience live, and Sweden, Finland, where they handle that in a better way. So we can learn from them. So we can compare, contrast, and be able to come out with an alternative or propose alternative solutions, being informed by the same reality in other cultural places. Well, thank you. Now we'll move. Thank you for your answers. And Claudia, thank you for your help. So then I will refer to our experience, our in-service teachers' experience. As you can see on the screen, I will start by saying that there is the teachers that go there to our master's program, they come with an array of theoretical and practical assumptions regarding not only ways of creating or developing materials, but also regarding language learning, language teaching, teaching approaches, how to use resources, learning strategies, assessment, practices, everything. And even with their own assumptions of language policy. So then, and those assumptions they come with are really permeated by power forces. By power forces, I mean, okay, the instructions given by, or the rules imposed by the ministerial institutions that the institutions also welcome and impose on teachers. The second aspect I would like to address is that regarding generic and global EFL textbooks, many teachers go to our master's program having this perception as being ideal, reliable, and valid for the practice. So they think that is perfect. They don't need to have students pondering or reflecting around reality, around situations in their home, in their school, and community context. So let's say that for them, those materials that are not contextualized, that are generic, standardized, are perfect, which is, as I see them, a big mistake. But learning, they come to our master's program and they start learning to ponder and critically assess or appraise the content of those textbooks, the type of learning activities, the purpose of language, the iconography they present, and the teaching approaches that inform those and underpin those materials. Especially because when we see content, most of the content that they present in these materials refers to go visiting, okay, places abroad, spending money, making the budget, following a stereotype of beauty, following a stereotype of rich people, well-off people. The type of learning activities are not centered on critical thinking oriented activities or critical thought or these high order thinking skills. The purpose of language, they start to notice that they use language just to talk about, let's say, empty things, not to talk about the deep or profound realities. The iconography, in many of the cases, is not useful to help the students understand the content, but any picture may do it. And then the teaching approaches are those approaches that have been implemented critically for many teachers, and they have nothing to do with our context. It is true there are many approaches that today consider the content, but I would recommend critical pedagogies. And of course, critical pedagogies is not a pedagogy that these generic textbooks will foster or use or follow. Additionally, considering the pedagogical context, it is something that at the beginning could be a little bit hard because they admire everything that comes road. And at the beginning, teachers may think that it is valuable to present in those generic materials. Then as we start working on making them ponder, analyze, and read critically the pedagogical context. And I like defining it as the space for the possibility to transform, to give them the possibility to transform their own realities or complex or harsh realities. And finally, I have invited them to experience the decolonial criteria for the development of contextualized and decolonized materials, otherwise that we will see here through this presentation. The question that guides this study says, what do teacher voices uncover from experience and decolonial criteria for the design of ELT materials otherwise? I just wanted to know their voices, what they think of using the decolonial criteria, because in this master's program they can also use or resort to the second language acquisition principles that have been used for generic standardized materials for years or for decades. Then, the idea is to be able to interpret and analyze teacher voices regarding the use of these decolonial criteria that involve a triad of ontological criteria, a triad of epistemological criteria, and a triad of power criteria in order to overcome decontextualization. A bit about the review of literature. Concerning the review of literature, I will start by saying that that we have, and let me begin with, okay, the last one, the first one at the bottom of the screen. So we have worked in this emphasis on several aspects that concern us as teachers educators. The first one is looking into the cultural content of the material that teachers develop. And there we publish a book titled Define Cultural Hegemony through Teaching and Narrative Materials in the year 2021, in which we analyze that teachers started to raise their awareness of that, let's say, hegemony of foreign culture from west and north, okay, countries, mainly the United States and the United Kingdom, which is the culture that is shown there. The rest of the cultures, let's say Latin American cultures, they include something about Latin America. It has to do with Mexico or Brazil. If Colombia is never there, and if Colombia is there, then it is not represented. Another aspect that we have reviewed is the cultural responsibility mediations as sort of differential culture. So through the development of materials that are created by both teachers and students in the pedagogical context, they can see that these theoretical mediations definitely respond to local cultures. And in that sense, they are motivated to learn, they have the reference to talk to. So they are engaged in class discussions, and they develop a very social, cultural, and political awareness. We have also worked in these spatial interview groups in Asocopy. On experience and decolonial criteria for ELT materials, for this year we are going to work, in our colloquium. For those who are joining us, or visiting Manizales, we're going to meet there in the SIG. And finally, there is a book that is a research book that is an evaluation that we entitled Unsettling and Reconstructing Teacher Belief Through Developing ELT Materials Otherwise. There we uncover that through this academic endeavor of culturally situating the pedagogical intervention for their studies in this master program students, service teachers, they start changing radically their beliefs regarding generic, decontextualized, standardized materials. So they created out interventions. They could be printed material, they could be web pages, they could be blogs, they could be workshops, they could be booklets, but they are developed by both teachers and students. I'm not referring here to decontextualized EFL textbook. No, why not? Because the EFL textbook has been a colonizing instrument. So I cannot propose them that a colonizing instrument can be then become a decolonized one, because no publishing house will invest in developing materials specifically for each one of the pedagogical contexts we have in Colombia or and all over the world. It wouldn't be profitable. So the only thing that worries, or the main thing that worries these conglomerate, these international editing houses is what? Making profits. And our interest as teachers is just to engage students, help them learn the language, and also help them become critical subjects. So they do not guarantee, so they can criticize the realities, they can deeply understand them, and start transforming as well. The theoretical underpinnings then here include decolonial criteria and ELT materials otherwise. So then, for decolonial criteria, we can say that it is the result of this problem. So I inquire into the coloniality of knowledge, power, and being in EFL textbooks. And this problem, this aspect that I problematize, basically aim to unveil the criteria of being, the criteria of knowledge, and the criteria of power, but rooted in what? In critical interculturality, and also inspired by the decolonial tongue, in order to orient the creation of contextualized and materials otherwise from the voices of Colombian teachers, authors, and experts. So here I consider teachers, authors, and experts. And Chavita, who is here, she was one of the participants of that study. Chavita, thank you again. So then, that was the problem, identifying coloniality in EFL materials, okay, generic EFL materials or global textbooks. Then, regarding the decolonial criteria in this article, you find the results of the study in indelible coloniality and emergent decoloniality in Colombian author EFL textbooks, a critical content analysis. So this article reports critical content analysis of 6 Colombian author EFL textbooks from local and foreign publishing houses, not only foreign houses, but local houses as well. So this study was framed with the socio-critical paradigm, which included interviews with 4 authors, 6 teachers, and 2 editors that I named as experts. And the finding revealed 3 kinds of decolonial criteria, which are the ones that we need, or I suggest or recommend to develop, contextualized and decolonized materials. Here we have a triad of ontological, epistemological, and power criteria. And what this criteria does is to localize the materials because they are sensitive to cultural diversity. And what I like saying is that it humanizes, definitely, other contextualized and desirable materials, and thus decolonize materials otherwise for the classes. Why otherwise? Because, as I said, these materials were rooted in critical interculturality, these criteria, and also inspired by the decolonial time. The decolonial time favors other thought, other ways of thinking, thinking otherwise, teaching otherwise, creating materials otherwise, and then performing, okay, or fostering teacher practices otherwise. So because there are many, many ways of teaching, many ways of learning, many ways of developing materials. The thing is that when we criticize materials, we should be able to provide our own way of developing them or build on what has been done so far. So then, we begin with the criteria of being. So please, if you have any doubt, please let us know so I can replay. So for the criteria of being, this triad suggests that we should consider student life experiences regarding what? Deep culture, regarding of human beings, regarding or concerning profound issues of our human beings, as the content of those contextualized materials otherwise, in constant dialogue with other experiences in the pluricultural universe. So it is not that we are only going to see ourselves, but we have these realities in constant conversation, dialogue with other experiences in this vast cultural world. And this content can be presented in multimodal tests of diverse genders. And here I would like to highlight that when teachers start exploring those realities in their students, what they mention are issues that are not to spend money, not to travel, but rather, for instance, drug consumption, drug dealing, unwanted pregnancy, depression, anorexia, bulimia, cutting, and so forth. So even suicide. So those are the issues that we should address in our classes. And even all these lack of social-emotional skills that we are facing after the pandemics. The second issue, when I say multimodal text, please, it is very important to move away, to shift from printed material, printed text all the time, because we can read graffiti, we can read body language, we can read with pages, we can read many other, we can also listen to, watch and listen to videos as well. So that is test, multimodal test. And diverse genders refer to one, not only narrative, but also expository, explanatory, and argumentative tests. Because if we offer their argumentative tests, it opens possibility for what? For discussion, for controversy, and also for the elaboration of arguments. Then the second aspect concerning the criteria of being is students' life project that I really like, because all our students are unique and different. They come from with assorted cultural backgrounds, and they have different capacities as well, and ways of being, feeling, being, experiencing, doing, acting, and inhabiting the world. And these life projects are important because they can share, construct, and share visions to generate other possible worlds, not only the one that we know so far, other ways of living and doing. And the last one is the inclusion of the iconography of the subject in the local context, in particular, the home, school, and community context, because it allows for recognition, for inclusion, and for identity. Now, concerning the criteria of knowledge, what I suggest is to consider that both teachers and students are empowered to, and they are the ones supposed to take curricular and contextualized materials or decisions regarding curriculum and materials. The second one is that the learning activities that we include there should be critical thinking or critical thought oriented learning activities. So we should have a student there contrasting, comparing, interpreting, discerning, reflecting, and pondering, and also discussing, elaborating arguments, and transforming the realities. And it requires, of course, the conscious of the critical use of learning strategies and technological resources. So we are not asking them to use technological resources for the sake of having them busy, but for the sake of having them productive and being able to be critical and go beyond literal interpretation. And the last criterion is the generation of context-sensitive methodologies. That is one criterion that I really like, because I invite teachers to please propose their own language pedagogy, their own way of teaching by asking their students what they would, the way they would like to be taught, what they consider pertinent and relevant way learning, so they can propose these context-sensitive language pedagogies to foster reflective, meaningful, and constructive learning settings. Finally, the criteria of power. This is a triad, which is, I consider the most complex and the more demanding criteria, set of criteria. First one is that definitely the collective action of the academic actors, all of them, not only teachers, but also students, then families, and the administrative staff, and the administrative institutions, all of us should be involved in a policy that should be agreed with the subjects directly involved, in this case, teachers and students, of course. The second is that we can create contextualized materials otherwise, with the help of students as well, in order to raise critical social and political awareness, because it contributes to struggle for a critical and democratic freedom-based education. We should remember that we educate people for life. We as English teachers are not only teaching a language. We can go beyond teaching the language if we concentrate on those complex realities that we have in different pedagogical contexts. And the last one, which is the institutionalization of contextualized materials otherwise, which is sometimes demanding because for public institutions or private institutions, perhaps it is not easy to assign a budget to help, the teacher to publish and to reproduce the materials. So then, but if we institutionalize them, we can raise the students' sense of belonging, commitment, and personal and professional growth for teachers as well. So these are the set of decolonial criteria I propose as a result of my doctoral study. And the other issue is ELT materials otherwise. So as I said, otherwise implies other possibilities, other ways of understanding or making sense of these materials. So that as I see them, materials are sociocultural, pedagogical, didactic, and cognitive mediations that facilitate linguistic and cultural interactions. We know that as we converse and we talk and discuss in class, there are also cultural interactions there. These mediations, as I see them, fulfill the sociocultural, political, academic, and aesthetic and historic aesthetic function for teaching solidary, responsible, critical, and autonomous citizens, which is needed, I would say, in education. And these students are conscious of their own culture and respectful of others and aware of differences. Very important to be aware of differences and being able to respect differences. That is the problem that we have today in our country. So if we are not able to respect differences, then we become like intolerant, and that is not how we're supposed to educate. And then these materials otherwise are desirable. We cannot say that they could be ideal, but desirable. They are contextualized and decolonized, and because they are sensitive to cultural diversity. So they are against cultural hegemony. They are against the congratulatory, static, hegemonic vision of culture, of foreign cultures. And for me, these mediations have the power of the potential to educate critical and interculturally aware citizens and nurture disruptive mindsets able to transform complex realities. If they can, the students can start transforming realities at home, at school, in the classroom, but if they can go to the community, it is even much better. So it all depends on the orientation that we have in our materials to be able to transform communities. So then the research design of this study is that it is a qualitative approach. It rescues mensages of complex realities, rescues subjectivity. I have chosen narrative research because all the human beings have stories to tell, and then human beings can build themselves through narrative, and the idea is to make sense of that, of the lived experiences of using the criteria. The participants are foreign service teachers in the postgraduate education program. For ethical consideration, they have signed the informed consent, and I will use member check, and then I use written and interview narrative with these four English teachers. So then the idea is to make a deep and critical interpretation of the experiences while using or incorporating these criteria in the materials they develop for the pedagogical interventions. Then the preliminary findings that I have, because I haven't been able to finish to do the interview narrative, but also the written ones, is that there is a shift from creating mainstream EFL textbooks to generating decolonized materials. So there is like a change in the perception of materials as well. Second, that they deem the EFL materials otherwise have offbeat mediations with the power to raise critical sociocultural awareness by questioning diversity issues to recognize intersectionality and defy colonialism. Finally, they acknowledge, the incentives teachers acknowledge the economic criteria interplay to foster students' critical reading, higher order thinking skills, social emotional and social affective skills, and gender equality. So then, regarding this teacher, for example, emphasizes on what? On the use of these criteria that allow her to increase her knowledge and experience as a critical teacher and material developer. And also that today she became in other words, I have become aware of the homogenizing teaching practices. So she has become aware of hegemony in ELT. Today, she says, today I acknowledge the significance of involving students' concerns, real-life and progress as content of the teaching materials, and also because she questioned and resignified her pedagogical practice, which is something that makes me really happy, because in the past they didn't used to be so critical and selective when looking or designing materials. The second aspect, it has to do then with the raising sociocultural awareness. And this teacher number one, says that she came to learn that being aware of ethnic, gender, and class diversity build the students' self-identity and self-awareness. And this study was conducted with fourth graders. That was incredible, because then they, by appreciating elements of the country's diversity in Colombia, they become references for their identity, and not assuming that their way of being is the only way that is respected and validated. So there are many possible ways of being, acting, feeling, dreaming, learning, and relearning, and coexisting in society. And that everything is valid. We cannot feel for others or live life for others. And then we have here that they also help to develop critical reading, higher order thinking skills, and social emotional and gender affective skills, and gender equity awareness. And then teacher number two, the implementation of situated teacher narrative workshop otherwise enhances students' critical reading skills, moving from lower to higher order skills, while they ponder local concerns in their home, school, and community context. And then teacher number three says, I came to learn that the culturally situated materials otherwise are designed in a disruptive way, foster the generation of learning environment that values teamwork, everyday life experiences, local iconography, critical thinking, cognizant or critical use of learning strategies and technology, implementation of teacher design learning language pedagogy, the one that she created, and the development of students' social and emotional skills led to the transformation of other everyday life concerns and constructive learning process. And the last one, I think, teacher number three says as well that the first-hand experience enhances students' empathy and sensitivity toward the needs, aspirations, and lived experiences of themselves and others, engaging them as active participants who can build strong, respectful relationships. This was studied regarding social affective skills. And then teacher number four said, I noted that when students, pre-service English teachers, realize they can raise gender equity awareness if they contextualize the EFL materials, as contextualization disrupts cultural hegemony, in which EFL teachers have been relegated to replicate knowledge from the North and West communities, which does not fit our Colombian realities. So these are just the preliminary findings that I was able to identify. And now we will move to the concluding remarks. So as you can see, in-service teachers in our program are seen, or within them, as reflective, cultural, political, and transformative subjects capable of generating knowledge, creating local knowledge, okay, as agent of inclusion and social justice. Second, in-service teachers reflect on the pedagogical context, the possibility, they become aware of hegemonic forces and ideology, and they experience the colonial criteria in the material they develop, and they have the potential to enhance the students' learning processes and critical, social, cultural, and political awareness, which is like becoming a critical subject in society. And the last aspect is that in service teachers' perceptions and beliefs, all mainstream materials, generic materials, were unsettled, were destabilized, were debunked and reconstructed. Today, they hold firmly to the perception that contextualization through decolonial criteria is essential to create EFL materials otherwise that challenge decontextualization, uniformity, colonial ideology, or ideology hegemony in ELT curriculum materials and teachers' assessment and teaching practices. So let's say that because materials permeate the class as well, the practice, the assessment, everything. So everything is there. If we use decontextualized materials, everything is decontextualized as well. Well, thank you very much indeed. I hope I managed time. Let me see. Yes.
Perfect
Okay.
timing.
So we have
Perfect.
time to questions, please. Thank you.
Yes, perfect timing, Astrid. So we have some time for questions, comments.
Please.
So please, we invite you to open your microphone and share your questions, insights, agreement, disagreement with Professor Astrid. And
Yes, everything is valid. Come
yes,
on.
I know.
Yes.
So
Activate your microphone or ask your questions, or even if you want to mention that you disagree or with what I have said, we can discuss it, of course. Everything is welcome, please.
so far we just have a message that says thank you so much. Let's wait. Let's wait.
All right, well, thank you. Thank you for
Yes,
joining
Professor.
and for being here.
Yes.
Professor Astrid, thanks a lot for being here with us today. We really learn a lot of things. We just try to do reading in a different way, textbooks in a different way, and that's the idea. The idea is that each day we share with all our students what we know and what else are we discovering every day. Thanks. Thanks a lot.
Thank you, Maria
Thanks a
Carolina.
lot.
Thank you for attending. And the idea is that you can always improve our teacher practice, and we can create and produce local knowledge and start conducting research, because through research we can also produce a general knowledge. Thank you. Thank you very much indeed.
It's very important that we start really developing research in our exercises, observing our classes, criticizing our own practices, right? It's a way of really understanding why we're doing what we're doing and what has to be changed. Because sometimes we just think that it's what comes from other places that what we have to, decolonize. And sometimes it's our own practice, the one where we have to say, wait, I have to change it. I had found that today has been amazing, Astrid, and thank you for sharing. We have someone, I don't know the name, it says Infinix X67 opening. Please open your microphone.
Okay.
Yes, thank you. Sorry, I couldn't change my ID. My name is Leah. Hi.
Hi,
Professor
Leah.
Astrid.
Leah. Hello, dear Leah. How are you?
How are you?
Fine.
Fine, thank you. I just want to ask you, just because I was a bit late and I was attending a different meeting, I would like to know where we can find further information about this, what you are presenting, because it's pretty interesting what you are doing in talking about narratives, something that really caught my attention. So I would like to know more in relation to what you are presenting right now. Maybe because I missed some information at the beginning.
Okay, well, yes, this is a study that I'm conducting, and I have just collected the written narrative. I'm still waiting for the interview narrative because I'm having the time, okay? But the information regarding what the criteria that they use to develop the materials in the pedagogical intervention appears in ICALA 2022, in Esparto 2022 ICALA. And then in the legal coloniality and emerging coloniality in EFL textbooks, which is a critical content analysis. And the problem was published in How, which is inquiry into coloniality of the information power of EFL materials. I'm planning to finish the article this semester. I have to do it this semester, and then looking for a journal to publish that. It takes a little bit of time, but I will try to participate in different events to be able to socialize the final findings of this narrative study. Because the idea is that this is a narrative study in which they can report their own transformation while attending the master's program, and particularly while developing and implementing the decolonial EFL materials otherwise, because it also led them to develop knowledge otherwise and practices otherwise, which is important. As Claudia Maria was saying, we need to criticize our own practices. I remember that when I started being a language teacher and then a teacher educator, I really loved material the way they were published. And to me, they were ideal as well. And gradually, studying, and especially in the doctoral program, I learned to kill the darling, and then understand that whatever that is permeated by ELT ideology should be defined, should be questioned, and then we should be able to propose. That is something hard to do with teachers because they come with the idea that everything should be replicated and should be used the way they come in a critical way. So then dogmatic ways, canonical ways of doing. So as if we were acritical, and we are critical individuals. That's why we need to question and then to propose something different based on our knowledge, on experience, and especially on our realities in our pedagogical context. Thank you, Leah.
We have two comments and
Yes,
two other people waiting. So we have from Jairo Castañeda. Congratulations,
Jairito,
dear
good to
Astrid.
see you.
Excellent as usual. I would like you to help us to connect what you have just, wait a minute, what you just have said with the possibilities English teachers have in the regions and rurality regarding creating materials otherwise. Hugs.
Okay, that is a very interesting question. Yes. When Chavita, who was also a former student in this master program, she participated at the beginning. And Chavita worked in the rural context. And I used to tell Chavita, you have everything in the rural context. And she knew that. I just exploited that. And you cannot believe what you can do in rural and regional contexts. Why? Because life is different there. So people are not rushing there. So culturally different because time is assumed from a different perspective and life as well. So there we have in the countryside, in the rural settings, the regional settings, everything to teach. People are more, I would say, are less busy and more concentrated on what they want to learn. They have more time to devote to reading, studying, and even paying attention in classes and participating. And they are, I would say, as I have noticed, they are more committed, I have to say, more committed, and less shy to share their own experiences. So when they are open to and willing to do, then teachers have the perfect, I would say, the perfect setting, the context for the possibility of creating and transforming. The most important thing is that we as teachers are transformed, our mindset, our beliefs, everything that we hold regarding belief, we hold regarding teaching, and also students' way of seeing English. It is not only to learn English for economic success or for profit-making reasons. It is learning English to talk about our deep, profound realities in order to what? To understand them properly and to be able to modify that. So our students are not condemned to be ruling life and to live without dignity, but they have the possibility to have, as I say, happy lives and have a dignified life as well.
Thank you, Astrid. We have Maria Isabel raising her hand, and after that, I will read another question. Maria Isabel.
Yes, thank you, teacher.
Hello,
Thank you to
Chavita.
refer to me. Yeah, we as teachers have an excellent opportunity to read the context, to read which are the students' interests, and the context is the tool we have to learn to manage and use as how can I say, is the way as how the teachers can understand, how can the teachers can transform the realia and use it as a tool to develop our classes. As teacher Astrid told us, we have to know how to develop our own materials and use all our creativity, because we are so our skill is to answer those needs students have in the classroom. So it's a real invitation to empower those skills we have, those abilities to create our own material and use this as a tool, as a tool to understand and to enjoy English in our classrooms with our students.
Thank you, Chavita.
Yeah.
What you have said,
teacher.
I agree with you. What you have said that we need to wear the critical lenses, the colonial lenses, to critically read our context. When we do that, we're able to identify not only interest, because students could be interested in football, interested in dancing, interested in going to the river, interested in doing many things. But what we need to inquire is into those deep, complex, difficult, harsh realities they live. In the countryside, they also live complex realities, of course, everywhere. So we need to identify those. And of course, many aspects interplay in the design. Not only your creativity, Chavita, but also your knowledge, pedagogical knowledge, content knowledge, educational knowledge, learning goals knowledge, everything we can, we know from the language and also from teaching and practical teaching pedagogy. They interplay with our teaching experience, and also they interplay with what we have in the pedagogical context to be able to create materials, EFL materials otherwise, which in my view, Chavita, are not tools anymore. When we see materials as tools, instruments, tools are artifacts, to me, they do not fulfill, okay, the purpose of helping students learn the language for meaningful and reflective purposes. But when you see them as mediations that are cognitive, sociocultural, didactic, and pedagogical, they do have the power to transform you and your students' mindsets. So you become a transformer, able to cause a change in the pedagogical setting, home, and community. So that's why I invite teachers to name them cultural mediations, cognitive mediations, pedagogical mediations, whatever, but they're mediations because they do fulfill the purpose of changing or transforming mindsets. Okay, thank you, Chavita.
Astrid, we have two more questions.
Thank
I
you,
know
teacher.
it's 6, but can we just talk a little bit about that before closing this webinar? Right? Yes, we have by CMN Gomez, Professor Astrid. Could you please tell us if you use any framework for teachers to create their own materials? I think you have answered some of these elements, but I don't know if you want to add something else.
Okay. As I said in the presentation we have today, I have proposed, after analyzing 6 EFL textbooks that are generic, standardized, decontextualized, and colonized, and listening to teachers, to experts, and to authors, I have revealed criteria to orient the development of EFL materials otherwise. And they are deontological, epistemological, and power criteria. In the ontological criteria, very important to have students compare realities, deep cultural issues that affect their lives, and present that at the and also in dialogue and in conversation with these realities in other contexts different from English-speaking countries. Okay, any other place in the world where they have or experience the same situation, and they have been able to be somehow successful in solving the problem. Then we have the iconography of the context. Very important to give the student the opportunity to recognize themselves there. So the material that our students develop, in service teachers develop, show the students in the rural setting, in the community, in their homes, even parents cooperate in that creation, and also empower teachers and students to develop them together. It is a conjoint, okay, academic endeavor. Also, the activities that you propose in the material, they necessarily need to address critical thinking or high order thinking skills, okay, to be developed. Also, use the critical use of learning strategies and pedagogical resources. Teachers need to propose their own language teaching pedagogy based on what? Their knowledge, pedagogical knowledge, content knowledge, educational knowledge, and also on the students, ideas and perception of learning as well, because we are there because they are our reason of teaching. They want to learn, and they know what they like today. They think differently compared to the way we used to think when we were young learners. Then it is important to try to exert, let's say, agency, and then be able to build materials that contribute to a libertarian education. We are not teaching just language. Forget about that. What I'm talking about unwanted pregnancy, while talking about suicide, while talking about drug consumption, animal mistreatment, all those aspects that are complex in the students' context, they learn the language. It is something that happens. But what moves them is that they have the reference of what they live in the context, and they are motivated to read, to question, to ask, and to learn as well, and to develop that critical, sociocultural, and political awareness. And the last one is to try to persuade the institutions to help you, maybe not publishing the workshops or the lessons or the activities or the booklet, but as a workbook, because as a student book, but as a leaflet, as a booklet that you can print and reprint and adjust with different courses. You can design, because the materials are designed for a particular group of students. We cannot say that this material developed for these students is useful in other contexts. No, you have to explore again those needs. So then you can find that, as you call it, framework, it is not a framework, but it is a set of decolonial criteria in ICALA 22, Núñez Pardo 22, in Deliberate Coloniality and in Native Decoloniality in Colombian author EFL textbooks, a critical content analysis. They are defined and the criteria. And you need samples. I don't know if I've shown the PowerPoint presentation, my email, you can write to me, Astrid.Nunes, would say, at externado.edu.co. So you can write to me, I can share whatever I have. I'm always been so generous with sharing whatever I have for you to learn and to resist the use of this decontextualized material that doesn't help in any way. They don't contribute to learning. They don't contribute to educate better human beings, and they don't contribute to transformation, but only reproducing, replicating, and naturalizing, and even legitimizing foreign cultural, incredible foreign cultural patterns. And that's all. Well, thank you.
Thank you, Professor. And we have just the last question or comment, and it's by Kerly Pavon before we close this amazing webinar. Kerly?
Thank you. I just wanted to say thanks to all of you, because I have been learning a lot. And as Professor Astrid has just said, that we're not just teaching English, and she mentioned also her power criteria. I want to highlight that language as a tool of empowerment. I mean, viewing language through a decolonial lens can empower our students by acknowledging the historical contents and power dynamics associated with English. It will help our students understand that language is not just a tool for communication, but also a means of preserving or challenging cultural identities. Sometimes we forget about that. And I said we because I'm included in those teachers who used to teach grammar and reading skills, listening skills. We didn't see beyond that. So encouraging teachers to draw on their own diverse knowledges in plural, as I have learned with Professor Astrid, and decolonial perspectives foster critical thinking skills in students. So that's an invitation for all of us, including me, to learn to question dominant narratives and engage in meaningful discussions.
Thank you, Kelly dear. Lovely to hear you. Yes, I agree with you. We need to see language not as a tool because it will be too simple. Language is a complex system that only makes sense when used in context. And then you say, yes, we can use the language to what? To criticize, okay, those conventional, traditional, colonial narratives and start generating knowledge otherwise. And so practices otherwise, through materials otherwise. And we can even try to, what is the word? It's not internalize, I always forget the word. When you have the power to build language policy within the institutional context, within the educational context. So we appropriate policy.
Appropriate policies.
Because you know that policies are also elitists when it comes to materials and literacy. Literacy that includes not only EFL textbooks, literacy that includes everything we have received from dominant Western North knowledges. So then it is time for them to start learning from us, and we have interesting local knowledge to explore. Remember everything that we have in Costa Pacífica, los arrullos, los alabados, los círculos de palabras, los tejidos, all of those issues that are so interesting, we can learn from them also. They can learn from us as well. So then thank you for your comments. Thank you, Claudia Maria, for your help. It was really, I'm really happy to have this wonderful audience and your help and this invitation. Thank you.
Astrid, thank you so much. It has been amazing to listen to you, to learn from your insights, to have this community today. We were more than 57 people listening to you and sharing ideas with you. And we think that is what Asocope is for, opening these spaces. Thank you so much. I hope to see you in Manizales. Everybody, you're more than welcome to join us in Manizales. And well, do not forget to follow Asocope. We are on Facebook, Instagram, Twitter, and YouTube. And in YouTube, we have all these videos, this material that members of our community are producing. So we keep building a stronger sense of belonging. Thank you, Astrid. Lovely.
Thank you.
Lovely.
Thank you everyone for joining.
Okay.
Bye-bye. Take
Bye-bye,
care.
everybody.
Bye. Thank you.